Hello everybody, welcome to Snyder's Inc. We got another Mr. Ballen reaction video for you today. This is top 3 photo with disturbing backstories part 13, and I don't even want to wait. I'm not even going to wait. We'll go get right into this. Let's go. You guys ready? Of course you're ready. Of course you're ready. Of course you're ready. Let's go.
Today, I'm going to share with you 3 progressively more disturbing stories, and at the end of each of them, I'm going to share with you the picture or pictures that are famously associated with them. But before I get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right channel because that's all I do, and I upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please wait for the like button to be taking a shower and then flush the toilet. Also, please subscribe to the
Oh, that's such a dick thing to do. That's such a dick thing to do. I love it.
This channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. Alright, let's get into today's stories. Andrew McAuley wasn't a
No picnic today, okay.
Andrew McAuley was an adventurer. He started as a rock climber and mountaineer, putting up dozens of big wall routes in Australia, as well as alpine first ascents in New Zealand, Patagonia, and the Himalayas in the 1990s. He took little interest in the marquee peaks. He preferred obscure, lesser-known peaks that were more challenging and complex. But in 1998, he fell nearly 30 meters during a climb and shattered his knee, which made it almost impossible to climb at the level he was climbing at before the injury.
Yeah, 30 meters down or 30 down and ran your knee. Oh yeah, your knee's crushed. You ain't climbing again like normal. No way. Because you have to worry the whole time about your knee and if it's going to act up and all that. Yeah, that sucks. No.
This injury that initially seemed like a really big setback because he loved mountain climbing, it ultimately spawned his true life passion that he didn't even know about, and that was sea kayaking. He took to kayaking because it didn't really require the use of his legs, and so he was able to continue to push the limits of his mental and physical endurance, but wasn't hampered by a knee injury. And much like his mountain
Alright, that actually makes sense. So he's on, because you're kayaking, all you're using is your upper body. So he's sitting there he's using that as his motivation to get around instead of, since he doesn't have to use a leg, he can do that instead of hiking and push himself. Alright, makes sense to me.
Mountain climbing career, he very quickly began conquering all of the most difficult open ocean kayaking routes all around Australia and New Zealand, to the point where he had done all of them. The only one he had not done was the Tasman Sea. Andrew estimated it would take him approximately 1 month or maybe a little bit longer to cross the 1,000-mile journey. Now, his biggest obstacle was not going to be his own physical or mental endurance. It was going to be the weather, because you're going to be out on the water for at least 30 days. There really isn't a weather window you can shoot for. You can't time this journey so you don't hit a storm. It's more about when you hit the storms, how will your kayak hold up? Other kayakers that had attempted going across the Tasman Sea had used these custom-built kayaks that had these elaborate canopies over the top of them, and they had these self-righting systems where if it flipped, it automatically popped right back up. But Andrew wanted to do it with just a basic kayak. He didn't want all the bells and whistles. He wanted this to be kind of pure.
Okay, so I don't like the idea of an elaborate custom-made kayak, because that would also cause things where if that goes wrong, you're kind of fucked. So I wouldn't do that. I do appreciate the fact though that this guy's going, no, I'm gonna use a basic kayak. I'm gonna do it without no elaborate tricks, no anything like that. I'm gonna do it with just a basic kayak, and I'm gonna get the job done that way. I appreciate that ability, that willingness.
But he did need to create a sort of system to protect himself in the middle of one of these storms. And so he literally went into his backyard and constructed this fiberglass that looked like a trash can that sat over his cockpit on the kayak that he could remove and put on the back of his kayak. And then if he wanted to sleep, he could put it over him, and it was sealed and watertight, and it would protect him from the storm. And if he flipped over, he wouldn't just sink and drown. He called this dome Casper, and he painted.
I don't know how I feel about this, because that could also hamper sight, which you need. So that could be a problem, though.
Did a big smiley face on it. And so after months and months of preparing for this journey, finally on January 11th, 2007, Andrew would kiss his wife and his young son goodbye. He would hop in his kayak along with Casper, and he would set sail on his solo journey across the Tasman Sea. For the first 2/3 of the trip, it seemed to be going extremely well. Andrew was checking in regularly on his radio. He had enough food and water. His kayak was holding up. Casper was holding up great at night, so he was able to get some sleep. But some really bad storms that he was anticipating began rolling in kind of all at once in that final third of the journey. During one particularly bad storm, Andrew would remain locked underneath Casper for 28 straight hours as these 30-foot waves would just wreak havoc outside, flipping his kayak over multiple times. I mean, just absolutely terrifying stuff. Inside his kayak, he had this beacon that if he pushed the button, it would send a GPS signal to the rescue crew that would immediately come out and they would save him. And the whole time he's getting thrashed around out in the middle of the ocean, he never presses the button. Because much like he didn't want to have all the bells and whistles on his kayak, he also didn't want any help. So instead, he would send kind of sarcastic text messages to the people on shore, making light of the situation he was in. Like during this storm, he sent a text message that just said, "No picnic today." 12 days after that particular storm, where he was locked inside for 28 hours, he had made it to within 80 miles of the finish line. And so he texted.
That's pretty good. 80 miles from the finish line? That's pretty good. I mean, you're going across 1,000-something miles across the lake. Just even getting that far is insane.
His wife and just says, "See you Sunday at 9 a.m. This was on a Thursday. And so when his wife, Vicky, gets this text message, she's so excited. She gets together everybody that wants to meet him at the finish line. And in fact, they all go there early on Thursday to just hang out and camp out until he arrives. But 24 hours after that text message was sent to his wife, Andrew would send a distress signal to the New Zealand Coast Guard. On the recording, Andrew sounds desperate. He also sounds deeply fatigued, or maybe even hypothermic, and he's pleading with them to come rescue him because his kayak is sinking. At first, people, including the Coast Guard, thought this could be a hoax because Andrew was so competent out on the water, and he had just gotten in touch with his wife the day earlier saying, "Everything's great, I'm almost done, I've made it past all the hard stuff, I'll see you on Sunday." But of course, they still send out a search crew that night to look for Andrew. They can't find him, so the next day, on Saturday, they expand their search and they do find Andrew's kayak, except Andrew's not in it. The only
Oh no. No, he left it. He ended up getting out of the kayak. Oh no. He ended up falling out or something like that and couldn't get to it. And then because of that, he now is stuck. He probably got stuck. And I probably can guess how this ends. Damn.
The thing missing was the canopy to the kayak. The rest of the kayak seemed to work just fine. His distress beacon had not been pressed, his GPS was still there, and his camera was still there. No one knows what happened to Andrew in his final hours before he ultimately disappeared. The prevailing theory is he must have been capsized and separated from his kayak, and then was unable to either get back to it or even climb back in because he was so tired. This is the final picture that was taken on Andrew's camera, and you can tell from his expression that he's not particularly happy to be in the situation he's in. And in fact, in some of the earlier video clips he shot, he actually says to the camera that he feels like he bit off more than he could chew, and that he wishes he could just be home with his wife and his son. Despite extensive search efforts, Andrew was never found.
I guarantee I know why. He's probably in some animal's stomach.
Monster spill? Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty.
They say all good things must come to an end. And there it was.
in the oven. Oh, God, okay.
In 2005, Addie Hall met Zach Bowen when they were both bartending in New Orleans. Addie liked to give Zach a really hard time and kind of played the mean girl as her way of flirting with him, but really what she was doing is testing Zach to see if he could put up with her, because she had a mean streak. She would have these crazy, angry outbursts and would yell and scream at people around her, and then she'd turn it off just like that, and she needed to make sure that he could put up with her. Zach, it would turn out, had his own mean streak and his own angry outbursts, and so in many ways they were very similar. Many of Zach and Addie's friends that were around them in those first few weeks they were together did not think this relationship would last very long because of how often they fought with each other. But it just so happened that Zach and Addie had met one another just weeks before Hurricane Katrina came through New Orleans and just devastated the area. And so before it arrived, Zach and Addie decide, let's stick it out. Let's stay here together. Let's ride this storm out together. And it was actually that storm that brought them together, and they both fell madly in love with each other and became totally inseparable. After the storm cleared.
Dang. Hurricane brought love together. That's messed up. I'm sorry, that's just messed up. I know I know they're not like actually going, but that's messed up.
Zach and Addie went out into the streets and began cooking food for people, and they had all this alcohol in their apartment, and they set up a makeshift bar outside in the French Quarter and were just giving away drinks to these people whose lives had been devastated by this storm. Their tale of love and colorful survivalism attracted many media outlets, including the New York Times, who did a feature on them. For a time, Zach and Addie felt like the king and queen of the French Quarter, and they were so happy. But when reality set back in and the real cleanup ensued and electricity was restored and people started moving back into their homes and people started going to work again, Zach and Addie were forced back into their old lifestyle, something neither of them wanted to experience again. So for the next year, Zach and Addie struggled to make ends meet, their bills continued to pile up, and really those two were at each other's throats all the time with these horrible, vicious fights. In October of 2006, when it seems like Zach and Addie's relationship is really on the rocks, they decide in order to reinvigorate their relationship, they're going to move out of their current apartment where there's lots of bad memories, and they're going to move into a new one. They found a little apartment over the famed Voodoo Temple on Rampart Street, and they immediately made a cash offer and they moved in. No sooner had they moved in did Addie go down to the landlord and say, remove Zach from the lease. She had found out that he was cheating on her, and she was preparing to kick him out of her life. Zach found out that he was not.
Oh, that's what this thing, see? Cheating always ruins a man. Don't ever cheat. Just don't cheat. You don't need to cheat. You don't want to be in a relationship with the girl, then don't be in a relationship with or him. No matter who it is, just don't be in a relationship you don't want to be in. Don't go sleep with someone else. Just end the relationship you don't want to be in it. Fuck.
Not on the lease before Addie could confront him about it, and it turned into this wicked fight between the two of them. A couple of days later, Zach showed up for work at the bar, and some of his coworkers recalled that he was acting really funny. He was wearing a hat pulled down low over his head and sunglasses and was really quiet, and when anybody asked him, like, what's going on with you? Why are you acting so strange? He would just tell them he was fine and would quickly walk away from them. Around the same time, Addie stopped showing up for work at all, and her coworkers turned to Zach and said, where's Addie? And he would say that they got into this fight and that Addie had actually left New Orleans and gone back to her hometown in North Carolina.
That sounds fishy there. You telling me this girl, just because you had army up and left and went all the way to North Carolina? Just that easy? No, I don't buy it. You're too suspicious, man. You're too suspicious.
And some people thought that was a little bit fishy because Addie loved New Orleans, but anybody that knew Addie knew she was very unpredictable, and if they had had this huge blowout fight, it is possible that she could have left for North Carolina. A week later, on October 17th, 2006, the New Orleans police received a phone call from a hotel in the area that spotted what they think is a body laying on the roof of their parking garage. When the police arrived, they could tell it was a deceased man and that he had died from impact, but they couldn't tell if it was a murder, a suicide, or a tragic accident. So they began searching his body to see if there was any indication of what happened, and they pull out a note that's addressed to police in his back pocket. The note is fairly long, but he communicates to the police that this was not an accident. I had to take my own life because I took a life, and if you go to my apartment on Rampart Street, you'll find the body of my girlfriend, Addie Hall, who I killed. Police rushed to the address that was...
I thought this dude killed his girlfriend because of the fact that she was gonna kick him out because he cheated. He did the wrong here. There was not even this dude's stupid. I hate this dude.
Was given in the note, they're horrified at what they find inside. As soon as they stepped into the apartment, the temperature dropped. The air conditioning had been set to the lowest it could possibly be, so it's very cold in the apartment. And they look around and they see these strange messages spray painted all over the walls. Things like, "I'm a total failure," and "Look in the oven." And there are arrows pointing on the walls towards the kitchen and towards the oven itself that's sitting in the kitchen. And sure enough, when they open up the oven, they find Addie. Police also found Addie's journal, and inside of it, Zach had left an 8-page, very detailed confession of how he had strangled Addie and then had tried to cook her to make it easier to dispose of her body, but couldn't finish the job, and that's when he went to the hotel and threw himself off. Here are some crime scene photos from outside the apartment as well as inside. You can see some of the messages that Zach had spray painted to the wall indicating to go check the oven. And here is the infamous oven where Addie's remains were found, as well as a message left in the kitchen saying that he was sorry he couldn't finish, in reference to his inability to finish cooking her and disposing of her body. Crazy as it sounds, this apartment is still being rented out today, and it includes this exact stove.
What? Hold on a minute. Pause everything. Hold on. This person rents out this apartment. That's fine. That's the apartment. You have a right. He has a right as a thing to film upon. But to have the same stove that a dead body was in. What? No. Oh, no. No, that's wrong. That's wrong at all levels right there. That is wrong. That is wrong. Shame on that dude. Shame on the landlord.
Hisashi Aochi was married, had a young
Walking ghost. Okay.
son. He smoked a pack of cigarettes a day. He played rugby in high school. And by 1999, he was employed as a technician at the JCO Tokaimura power plant. He and his colleagues had been tasked with creating the fuel for a fast reactor called Joyo. Since 1993, the company JCO that owns this power plant that Aochi works for, they had been cutting a lot of corners to increase productivity and profitability, but at the expense of safety.
That seems to be a power plant story we hear a lot going on.
In fact, the company had their own in-house rules that totally went against nuclear power plant regulations. They called this the Shadow Guide, and within the Shadow Guide there were very specific steps that were totally unsafe and unregulated to create this fuel for this Joyo fast reactor. On September 30th, 1999, Aochi was creating this Joyo fuel, and he was leaning over this large steel containment tank, and he was holding a funnel. One of his colleagues was above the tank, pouring in this potent solution through the funnel into the tank. The tank they were using, that was prescribed under the Shadow Guide, was not actually designed to hold the amount of radioactive materials that were being put inside of it. And so as Aochi and his colleague are creating this mixture, a very dangerous event occurred known as criticality. One of the survivors, who was sitting away from the tank behind a desk, described this event as being an extremely loud bang followed by this blue flash that filled the entire room. And what that blue light was extremely high levels of radiation, and because Aochi was the one kind of leaning over the tank, it all went right through him. By the time a rescue...
Ouch, this guy has a big amount of these two are dealing with this high radiation chemical thing, putting it into this fluid, into the system, this thing, and because they're being cut corners, the thing doesn't work right, it doesn't fit how much is supposed to go in, and a big thing happens that causes all radiation to go pretty much straight into this dude. Man.
Crew got in the room to help them. Aochi is uncontrollably vomiting, and he's lightheaded and dizzy. He does not have any physical wounds. This was not an explosion, so there's no lacerations or anything on his body. But he had been exposed to 17 sieverts of radiation, which is the highest amount of radiation any human being has ever been exposed to in documented history.
Damn, that's a lot of radiation.
Aochi was airlifted to a hospital, and doctors and nurses were actually kind of amazed at how well he was doing in those first few days. Again, he did not have any burn marks or anything on his body. He did have a little bit of redness on his right arm, which was positioned directly over the tank when this criticality event occurred, but he was in good spirits and was even joking around with the staff about how he can't wait to get home. In reality, Aochi died as soon as he was exposed to that criticality event and received 17 sieverts of radiation. He was in what's known as walking ghost phase, where due to high levels of radiation, all of his chromosomes had been obliterated, which meant his body did not have a blueprint to reproduce cells. So basically, he appeared alive and well because his body had created all of these cells in his body before the accident, but as those cells died off, they would not be reproduced, which means in walking ghost phase, your body is turning into a corpse, but you're alive to watch it happen. Tragically, after doctors discovered this about his condition and they informed Aochi of what was going on, Aochi did not seem to think there could be that serious of consequences for being exposed to that level of radiation. He felt like he was in the clear. He had made it past a couple of days. He thought maybe at worst he would develop leukemia later in life because he thought that was a thing with radiation. And really his concern was that he might have to stay in the hospital for a little bit longer. He just wanted to go home. 3 weeks after the accident, his intestines began to hemorrhage and his skin fell off. All of it. They attempted numerous skin grafts to try to keep his bodily fluids inside of him, but none of them took, so they began wrapping him in gauze like he was a mummy. By November 27th, which is 2 months after the accident, miraculously he was still alive. However, his pain levels were so high they had to put him into a medically induced coma. While he was in the coma, his heart would stop and he would need to be resuscitated 3 separate times. And on the 3rd time he was brought back, he would say, "Stop. Stop, get out of the room, leave me alone." But they didn't stop because the doctors and nurses were very interested in studying the effects of this level of radiation and how...
Oh, that's wrong. This guy just wants to die and then just make his stay. Why? Hold on. This guy is going through high levels of radiation. This man is dying in his thing. He is watching his body fall apart. All he is asking is for these fucking doctors to leave the goddamn room so he can die in some peace. But these people are so fascinated with freaking studying this guy like he's a goddamn guinea pig in a science thing that they are freaking consistently bringing him back to life just to watch it. Oh, if I was alive, oh my god, I'd somehow find some strength to kill a bitch. I'd kill someone just to freaking die on my own accord.
How well he would respond to treatment, and just trying to learn as much as they could about this event because it had never happened before. And they probably justified it by saying this will save other people's lives. But what that meant is Aochi would need to suffer unbelievable levels of pain. Nearing the end, when Aochi could still speak, he told the doctors and nurses repeatedly that he is not a guinea pig. Finally, a do not resuscitate order was put in place, and in relative short order, Aochi passed away.
Thank you. I'm sorry, that sounds really bad, but like, goddamn, this boy's suffering, this man's suffering, just let the man die. They put a do not resuscitate, like, don't freaking keep putting this guy back to life and let him suffer, just freaking end it, and they finally did, thank God.
After 83 days of just unbelievable agony. The truly famous picture that is associated with this story is unbelievably graphic, and I did not want to share it on this channel. However, if you feel so inclined, it's not that difficult to find online. This picture, however, is equally disturbing because it's of Aochi right after he's arrived at the hospital. He is in that walking ghost phase. All of his chromosomes have been obliterated. He is effectively dead right now in this picture. He just doesn't know it yet. So that's going to do it, guys. Let me know what you thought of these 3.
That is insane to be part of, like, you know, walking ghost phase where you are just a ghost and you don't even know you're a ghost. That's insanity. Freaking hell, I couldn't imagine that. But anybody, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this reaction video. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment what you think down below. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you for the next one.